2024 has gone, I thought I would do my reading wrapped of last year. Here are my top 10 books which I would recommend to anyone if you're starting off reading this year, or if you're looking for more books to add to your book list, add on Goodreads. These are just ones that I genuinely really loved last year. I gave them all 5 out of 5 stars. They're ones I would do anything to read again. So yeah, I thought I'd explain a bit about each one and hopefully give you some inspiration of what to read next. Most of these are non-fiction, just as a disclaimer. I think I've got 2 which are fiction, but yeah, I was really into personal growth and kind of development books last year, so that's kind of what the basis of them are. If I was to recommend any mental health book to you, it would be this one, Why Has No One Told Me This Before? It's such a powerful book. It's written by Dr. Judy Smith, who you've probably heard of on social media. She's a great psychologist, and it's one that you can dip in and out of based on how you're feeling, whether it be that you're experiencing grief, stress, a lack of motivation, anything like that. She's got some really practical tips and kind of debunks some common myths about each feeling, or just gives you useful tools to use. So I would definitely recommend this book. My second book recommendation is one that we've probably all need to read at some point in our lives, because I'm sure we've all dealt with narcissistic people before, but it's called Surrounded by Narcissists. It's a spin-off, Surrounded by Idiots, from the same author. It's really great. It kind of tells you what makes narcissists tick. It kind of gives you strategies of how to deal with people like that in your life, and he bases it off of this model of personality. So he tells you how each one has narcissistic capabilities and things like that. So again, really interesting one, and I would definitely say it's worth a read. Next one you've probably heard of. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow. This one is very scientific, I'm not gonna lie. It's one that's a little bit harder to read, but it's about how humans actually make decisions. So it kind of goes through a 2-step model. It's really good if you're just looking for something to learn more about the human mind, about human nature. And again, I just thought it was really revolutionary the way it was written, and I think there's a reason why this one's so popular. It's one that I would definitely say you should read every once in a while. When I was studying A-level psychology last year, one of the books that really drew my eye was The Lucifer Effect. Now this one completely changed my perspective on humanity, for being honest. It's Why Good People Turn Evil, and it's written by Zimbardo. If you've ever heard of his Stanford Prison Experiment, it's a really famous one. It kind of talks about how social roles change your own behaviour in a social setting, and he just goes so in depth about it. Like, you see a lot of things online about what the general basis is. He literally goes through every single account of what happens. He goes through his own theory about why it occurred. Like, it's not just his experiment in a book, like it's a lot more than that. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, this probably was one of my top 3 books last year. Now, sticking with the psychology themed books, I also read The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. Now, you might be reading that and thinking, what is this actually about? It's kind of a variety of neurological case studies about people who have suffered with, for instance, brain damage, forgetting things, that kind of thing. And it's just really motivational and inspiring piece of clinical writing by a psychologist who is very well known. And this is just one of the case studies, but there's a few which I think are just really interesting to read about. Like, if you're into real life examples and things that you may have not really considered of how other people are living, this book genuinely was such a good find. Next up, this is the most recent book that I read in 2024, but it again altered my perspective on life, and that was The Art of Reading Minds. I would say that I'm quite a people person, like I know how to read people pretty well, but this book changed my perspective. I was like, okay, I'm only 19, I do not know how to do that yet, because it kind of shows you that body language only goes so much. You have to kind of look at the non-verbal communications of humans, and it's really in depth. It gives you a lot of practical tips of how you could do it. If you genuinely feel like you can never tell what people are thinking or what they're feeling like, this book is for you, because I bet you by the end of the time you've read it, you will know. Then my next book is a fiction one, and this is one that I much prefer to the actual film production of this, and it's Where the Crawdads Sing. This book was my favourite fiction book last year. It was just so good. It's about changing adulthood. It's about feeling like an outsider in society. It's kind of like a romance and a mystery novel at the same time. So if you're into that, it's not too cliche, like it kind of leaves you hooked. And I finished this in probably 2 days maximum. Like, I read it really quickly because I just fell in love with the characters, and I thought, you know what, the actual writing is so powerful. So this is one where I definitely think the book is so much better than the film. But yeah, definitely would recommend this one. If you're in like scientific books or reading more about STEM type subjects, I would definitely recommend reading Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. Or if genuinely you're just a student who doesn't really know why your sleep schedule is messed up, this is a great book, because it kind of talks about sleep deprivation, it talks about the power of napping, how long you should nap for, all the effects of like accumulated sleep loss. And it is a difficult book to read. This one did take me probably a few months, if we're being honest, because I had to read it chapter at a time, but it's a good one to just keep reading here and there, and he knows what he's talking about. I think this is a really, really great book for anyone to read, whether you're 16, whether you're 60. I think this is one that is like one of the top 3 that I'd recommend to anyone. And my favourite popular like TikTok book was this one. You've probably heard of it before. It got Book of the Year, but I just fell in love with Eleanor's character. It talks about like the feelings of loneliness, about mental health. Like, it's a really good book. I kind of wasn't expecting much from it, because a lot of the ones that I find are viral I don't really enjoy reading, but this one genuinely changed my life, and I definitely shed a few tears after reading it. So again, very emotional, very moving, and so one of my favourites. For my favourite last book of 2024, I thought I'd show you something different, and this is Jamie Oliver's 15-Minute Meals. Now, I only recently bought this towards the end of 2024, and I had a lot of other cookbooks that I used whilst I was at uni, because there's something about like actually just finding a recipe in a book that I really prefer to like just googling one or looking up one on TikTok. But his meals are really simple, they're really easy to make. I was looking through them and I've already tried a few, and I genuinely love this book so much, because as a student I don't really have a lot of time to spend an hour a day on like making a fancy meal, so these are just really accessible, really quick ingredients, things you probably have around your fridge. So definitely would recommend if you're into cooking or if you want to start being into cooking. So yeah, it has breakfast, lunch ideas, desserts, anything. So yeah. So that's the end of my top 10 books of 2024. Let me know what your favourite book that you read was, because I love hearing other people's suggestions, or whether any of my favourites you didn't really particularly like, because I also love a different perspective on things like that. But I hope this has inspired you to maybe go out and buy a book. And I'm not saying you have to spend £7 on a book. I would honestly found half of those in a charity shop. It's just luck of the draw. If you can find them at a cheaper price, then obviously go for it. Maybe on your Kindle, listen to it as an audiobook if you have Spotify Premium. But yeah, I honestly think reading is so crucial, and it's just a great skill to have. So if that's one of your New Year's resolutions this year, I hope that's giving you a bit of inspiration. Keep smiling, keep being you, and I'll see you next time.